o'clock. So I'd like to go ahead and call our meeting of September the 8th here order. Ada, would you take roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Nielsen,
Here.
Mr. Rader,
Here.
Dr. Ramos,
Present.
Mrs. Reyes,
Here.
Mrs. Soshanek.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would you all like to join in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Now, with if any of you have cell phones on or anything like that, if you wouldn't mind turning those off, and we'll take just a minute here for a moment of silence. All right, thank you very much. Do any of the board members wish to make a statement tonight?
I have nothing.
Thank you. If there's none of you that have anything that would like to share with us tonight, Dr. Freeman, we'll turn the time over to you then.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Buenas tardes a todos. Good evening, everyone. And I want to begin by reminding families to be counted. Every 10 years, the United States Constitution requires a count or a census of everyone living in the country, and the count must include people of all ages, races, ethnic groups, citizens, non-citizens alike. The census survey can be completed online, so I did it. It's not that hard to do, doesn't take that long. Visit your city's webpage or go to my2020census.gov. There's been a lot of talk about attempts to suppress the census and keep people from being counted, even things to scare people from participating, but nobody should let himself or herself be intimidated because your information is secure and private. The Census Bureau cannot, by federal law, share answers by names with others, including various other state or national agencies. It's really important to complete the survey as the data is used to distribute more than $700 billion in federal funding to states and communities each year, and it's used for a whole decade. Arizona's share is $13.5 billion. Now, our percentage of people who are on free and reduced meals program is lower on the census than it is on the forms our parents fill out in the Littleton district. So we think this means that we're not receiving all the federal funding we need in our community to help our kids learn. Census counts are also used to determine representation in Congress and our legislature, to allocate resources for job creation, housing, infrastructure, and more. They decide where schools, roads, hospitals, childcare centers, senior centers, and all kinds of other essential services are going to be built. After the general election on November 3rd, the people will be working on all of the new district boundaries for the next 10 years. And that's just one more reason to remind everybody to get ready to vote. The deadline to vote is Monday, October 5th. And whether you register online or by mail with a postmark by October 5th. Early voting period starts October 7th. So both of those deadlines are just a month away now, less. And it ends October 30th at midnight prior to actual election day. People can still request a ballot by mail through about the third week in October, but some dates and hours vary. So if you have questions, you should contact the county recorder's office. Everyone needs to model good civic engagement for our students and live up to the civic responsibility of casting a ballot. Don't allow others to silence your choice because every vote matters. This mess our nation, our state, our community is in is added to the hardship faced by many of our families. And with this in mind, the ADM group set up a goal to support a family in need within 6 of the different school districts with whom they provide architectural work. One of our paraprofessionals at Country Place, Eugenia Lopez, was a perfect match for this program. Ms. Lopez has struggled as a single mother since her husband passed away a couple years ago, and in June, her home caught on fire, damaging about a quarter of the structure. Since then, she's, because she had no insurance at the time, she and the children had to move into a trailer with her mother. So therefore, last month, volunteers pitched in to pay for rent for a temporary apartment, showed up in the rain to help the Lopez family move. And in the meantime, the ADM group's been collecting donated parts and commitments for labor to help fix up the family's fire-damaged house. This act of kindness was captured by the 3 TV News team about a week ago, and we're all very appreciative of their assistance. It's a great reminder that we live in a caring community, and when we say we're all in this together, in Littleton, we show it. Around our schools, our district hosted our first ever virtual curriculum night for our families and community to come together and learn about grade level curriculum, assessment, resources, standards, communication, and engagement. We've even already started to expand our efforts in social emotional learning to help begin making a greater impact on all the inequities in our society that recent events have laid open for more and more people to see. We'll have more on that later in the agenda tonight when the board discusses a resolution for equity and inclusion with components that were drafted by Dr. Ramos-Pell. The principals kicked off the virtual curriculum night activities with families by sharing how the Elementary Secondary Education Act Title I funding positively affects their children's education in our schools. The event shifted to virtual classroom visits with introductions to grade level content and the curriculum materials, expectations, how all of these things integrate together into our current instructional model. Teachers provided advice on shared strategies and resources that our families can use, and then families were free to ask questions of the teachers. I'd like to thank our families for their virtual presence and their interest in learning how to better support their students. Principals and teachers said it was a really well attended and worth doing again next year, even if we're not being forced to do everything with distance learning. They thought it was very worthwhile. It's September, and that means schools are busy raising awareness about the importance of daily attendance and learning activities. Teachers are keeping attendance at the forefront by constantly communicating with families, planning engaging activities for both synchronous and asynchronous work time. And when teachers notice students have been out of class for a while, they call home, work with the families, help get students back in class. Information from attendanceworks.org will be shared weekly with families through Remind as well as other activities. Some of our schools are keeping attendance at the forefront, like Astoria Vista, Quinton, and Tres Rios, recognizing class with the highest attendance with a trophy. And then those classes will be spotlighted on their monthly social media platforms. Collier is keeping track of perfect attendance weekly and monthly, with monthly winners receiving Peter Piper Pizza or Texas Roadhouse Awards. Country Place is celebrating by sharing resources and videos, hosting contests, and encourage students not only to attend class sessions, but also turn in their assignments on time. So our kids can't complete their digital assignments without digital tools. And as you already know, we started the year with 3,234 laptops checked out for our learning engagement days at the beginning of the year, with the promise of more to come. Our technicians have completed some of the necessary repairs, some of the laptops. Schools have continued to distribute devices to families that have newly enrolled, bringing the number distributed up to 4,200 already, nearly 1,000 increase. We've recently received 2 more shipments of 2 different vendors. So our technology department is processing those orders, and that means we'll be able to distribute several hundred more devices into the hands of our families in the coming days. We want to get that equipment out as quickly as possible, so schools are developing lists of students who need either a device or help with an internet connection. So contact your school if that should include you. Last week, the Boys and Girls Club in Littleton, there were many smiles underneath their masks. Students and staff were equally excited to receive new web cameras and headphones for the club's learning lab. A generous donation was made possible by the Littleton Education Foundation, working with the ADM group again to help connect more students to virtual learning. And I'm excited and appreciative of our partners for supporting our mission of being leaders in learning and caring and growing. Finally, Mr. President, in closing, I'd like to express our appreciation to Veronica Gonzalez with Costco Warehouse for their donation of almost $7,000 in school supplies for our kids. And that's all I have this evening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Freeman. It's amazing all the things that are going on, in spite of what is going on in the world too. Ms. Vanderwater, would you like to do our program showcase at this present time? Is she there?
You must be muted, Ms. Vanderwater.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
President Nielsen, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman, I am excited to present to you our program showcase this evening. Tonight, Tres Rios Service Academy will showcase their dynamic distance learning model by highlighting their first ever digital Meet the Teacher and curriculum night, utilization of Google Classroom, modes of family contact, and community feedback, each of which has been crucial to the success Tres Rios has experienced in this platform. Proud Puma principal, Mr. Steve Rickert, recently posted to the Tres Rios website a message from the principal that read, "Hello, Pumas. I want to begin by thanking all of our students, staff, and families for the patience and persistence you have shown as we embark on our dynamic digital learning journey. There are amazing things happening in our virtual classrooms, and I couldn't be more proud of our Pumas." The month of September is designated as Attendance Awareness Month. Students should be engaging in both synchronous and asynchronous learning each day. This consistent participation will set our students up for success. Joining us this evening to share the incredible success their school community is having with dynamic distance learning is Principal Mr. Steve Rickert.
Thank you, Ms. Vanderwater, and good evening, President Nielsen, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman, and E-Team. It is my great honor to showcase the dynamic digital learning model at Tres Rios Service Academy. As you are well aware, we began the 2020-2021 school year with our family engagement nights, July 29th, July 30th, and July 31st. On July 29th, we held our first ever virtual Meet the Teacher night. Families had the opportunity to meet teachers using Google Meets. Teachers introduced themselves to their families and prepared slideshows to familiarize students and their parents with our online format. District-wide, we have utilized Google Classrooms as the platform for our instruction. Students access their assignments and participate in their synchronous and asynchronous learning through these classrooms. In order to ensure that our students were prepared for their learning experiences, we set up dates for distribution of both laptops and consumable materials. Safety was our top priority, so these distributions occurred in a drive-up format. Times were scheduled strategically to accommodate for the work schedules of our families. In addition to the work prepared in Google Classroom, teachers and students have benefited from the online materials of our curricular resources. Assessments continue to be a valuable instructional tool, even in distance learning. Teachers use Acadians to assess the students' reading levels. Common formative assessments are given to assess the standards that have been taught in the classroom. Skills assessments allow teachers to identify what needs to be focused on. And district interims assess what is taught throughout the quarter. Last week, on September 1st, we held our virtual curriculum night. Administrators and teachers met with families through Google Meets to discuss Title I, review distance learning expectations, the curricular resources, and learning targets for the year. Now, more than ever, communication with our families is critical. Teachers regularly use Remind to communicate out to their families. Class information and updates can also be found on the teachers' Google Sites. School-wide information is sent out through Remind and posted to our school's Facebook page. We are now 5+ weeks into our distance learning model, and the question comes up, how's it going? I would like to share with you feedback from 3 parents that may help us to answer this question. Our first parent said, I think it's going great. The schedule and the curriculum are amazing, and I feel that the combination of live lesson instruction, virtual lessons on slides, and the way that their assignments are set up on Google Classroom is teaching them to be accountable for their work, make good use of their time, and the material being presented is very well thought out and clear. I also think that being able to learn and navigate digitally is setting them up for future success. They will be at that much more tech savvy and responsible with the technology they will continue to use for years to come. I also think that you are making yourself so accessible through the day for questions, clarification, or assistance with the websites. And I know that there is also a couple meets through the day for students who need help with ELA or math. They're able to join during office hours and after lessons to get help or ask questions that they may need. I think you're all doing great. A second parent commented, I think it's amazing how organized everything has been and how everything is so well planned out. Has been better than I thought it would be. I work from home and never have to worry about helping my student because you amazing teachers are there to answer her questions and help. So I really appreciate your work, effort, and enthusiasm to help students get adjusted to this new experience. And thanks to your hard work, you are making it a great one. And finally, I really appreciate how organized you are and how clear the instructions and schedule are set up for my student and also for myself. You guys are all doing amazing. Between the assignments, the live meetings, and the virtual slide lessons, all the well thought out curriculum, I know this year we are all going to grow and learn so much. Already this week has been so educational. I can't thank you enough for your patience, the calm and relaxed way that you instruct. I know that it's been hectic, but you made my student feel so relaxed and optimistic, which means you have managed to create a great and positive learning environment. Thank you. With all the hecticness and uncertainty that surrounds us, it has been really refreshing to see all of you wonderful teachers go above and beyond. It's really eased any stress and any anxieties we had about the distance learning. My student and I are very impressed with how prepared you all have been and extremely grateful. These slides provide an initial look into our online instruction, but in order to get a deeper understanding, we have created a short video bringing to life dynamic digital learning, Puma style. Enjoy. Thank you for the opportunity to highlight the great work of our Trace Rios students, staff, and community. Are there any questions that I can answer for you?
Any questions from any members of the board this evening?
No.
I don't know what question, Mr. Record. I can tell you I was up in Las Vegas this past weekend and visiting grandchildren. And I have a granddaughter who's 6 and in kindergarten. And I went upstairs to say hi to her, and she had her headphones on and was listening to her teacher. She put her finger up and, shh, Grandpa, don't you know I'm in school? So once they get into it, they're really good.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you, Mr. Rickert.
All right.
We're doing 3 schools.
Okay. You okay? Item number 8 is call to the public. Ada, have we received any comments from the public?
No, Mr. President, none were received.
Okay, if we've had no comments, we'd like to move on to item number 9, consent agenda. Are there any members of the board that would like to poll any items in the consent agenda?
I'd like to pull item 9C8, please, regarding the fiscal year 2021 School Facilities Board Capital Plan.
9C8. Okay. Pull that one out and hold that one. Any others? If there's no others, could I have a motion to approve the remaining items except for 9C8?
This is Amy, and I move that we approve the
Move
consent
approval
agenda.
of the consent agenda with the exception of item 9C8.
I'll second.
Thank you. Did you get that, Ada? Who put the proposal in first?
I think it was like a tie, but I kept going. Sorry, Amy. It was Perletta and then Amy second.
Okay, Perletta was first, Amy. Thank you. With that, Perlette, item 9C8. Oh, sorry.
But
I need to get
no worry.
an affirmative vote on the other ones there. So if you take the call, we can.
Sure, Mr. Nielsen,
Aye.
Mr. Rader,
Aye.
Dr. Ramos,
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes,
Aye.
Mrs. Sashanek.
Aye.
Thank you so much. Okay, item 9C8. Any questions there, Perlette, that you'd like to bring up or anything that needs to be explained here?
Sure. Based upon
Hang on there, Perlette, you're flying in and out.
better slow my
Dr. Remus, you might try turning off your video because your audio is breaking up.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
That's a little bit better, yes.
My question is based on the predictions. There's a prediction of student enrollment increase ranging from 2% over 6%. And it says in the document that it's based on birth rates, the economy predictions, and scheduled developments. And I'm assuming that the economy predictions are as of late, meaning the pandemic and the loss of what's happening like nationally, and then following what's predicted for the economy in Arizona prospectively. I just wanted a confirmation of that, if that's true. And then just Dr. Freeman, what are your thoughts about the 2% to 6%? Where do you think we'd fall in that range?
Dr. Freeman, you want me to go ahead and answer the first piece of that?
Yeah, Mr. French, you can jump in if you want at any time. I think I mean, we've discussed this pretty thoroughly. So,
Okay. Member Ramos, the economic predictions that we received were from a demographic study that were conducted last spring. We took those along with the developments in the district to come up with the change in ADM for those years.
Okay, well, maybe I didn't catch that. And because the document was dated 9/3, at least the document in the agenda, I thought it was done more recently than that.
Dr.
Okay.
Remus, we work with, there's a demographic company a lot of school districts use. We don't do it every year, but obviously everything that's been happening in the economy and the growth in our area, we probably will do it again next year because things are changing so much. But the school facilities board also has their own person doing this work, and of course then the city. So, and we actually sometimes will go out and talk to developers and ask them what they think their sales rates are going to be. A lot of times they have other information. So there's a little bit of triangulation that happens, and we don't always agree with the school facilities board. Our demographers have never been exactly right, usually close within a year or two. And I mean, I think it'd be hard to find somebody who was going to be exactly right the way things are going. It's pretty challenging. I'm sure as you're pointing out.
Yeah, well, so that was the thing. I was like, oh, this sounds wonderful, but in light of what's happening, I wondered if it was still accurate. That's all. Thank you, Dr. Freeman.
All right, Perlette, does that answer your question there on that one?
It does, yes. Thank you. I can move approval of item 9C8.
I'll second that. This is Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy. Ada, would you like to take a roll call, please? Oh, it was under the consent to be approved. So we've got a motion and a second. And then if you wouldn't mind taking a roll call, please.
Mr. Nielsen,
Aye.
Mr. Rader,
Aye.
Dr. Ramos,
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes,
Aye.
Mrs. Sashina.
Aye.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Let's move on to item number 10. Dynamic digital distant model for Google Meets. Ms. Vanderwater, back to you.
Thank you. President Nielsen, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman. Tonight, the governing board will hear and view information regarding the digital distance learning model and use of Google Meet for delivering instruction and supporting our students and families with learning within the opening of schools model. The Littleton School District opened up FY 2021 under the digital distance learning model, allowing for students kindergarten through 8th grade to receive instruction in the areas of social emotional learning, English language arts, math, science, history, social sciences, and a variety of special area classes. Within the home during the school hours, students have instruction and are learning for approximately 7 hours a day with their teachers instructing virtually during a portion of that time. The platform that they are using for instruction is Google Classroom and its features like Google Meet to allow for online virtual conferencing. Google Meet empowers learning while getting more time back to focus on students with flexible, secure, and easy to use tools that are free and built for education. Google Meet connects students and teachers to teach and learn from anywhere. Tonight, we will present a video to display a virtual tour of the Google Meet tool that teachers and students are using for synchronous instruction and virtual office hours. We will be providing a video walkthrough of the Google Meet process at this time. Please enjoy.
Here in the Littleton Elementary School District, we enable distance learning by using Google Meet. What is Google Meet? Google Meet is a video conferencing app. It is built to let people join in the same virtual meeting and speak or share video with each other from anywhere with internet access. It is a great way to communicate when you cannot be in the same building. It makes it easier to have classes remotely. Google Classroom and Google Meet are integrated, putting both tools in one place. Google Meet is compatible across devices. It will work on basically any device. Students are able to join a meeting using a desktop or laptop computer. They can also join in using their Android phone or tablet or any Apple device such as an iPhone or iPad. Google Meet has many features. The teacher is able to share the class meeting details with the students. Students will know which class meeting it is by the way the teacher labels it. Participants can turn the microphone or camera on or off. They can leave the meeting at the click of a button. Students and teachers can share their screen or give presentations. Using the chat features, meetings are more engaging with live messaging. Participants can also share their work, ask questions, and even share files. A unique Meet link for each class is displayed on the Google Classroom stream and classwork pages. This link acts as a dedicated meeting space for each class, making it easy for both teachers and students to join. Now, let's take a closer look at how to join a meeting and how Google Meet is being used here in the Littleton Elementary School District. After parents or students input their meeting code, they can adjust the camera and see how they look before entering the meeting. This is especially important to ensure that the camera only captures what is appropriate and safe. Then all they do is click Join Now, and they are in their class meeting. Now, let's visit some Littleton Meet classes and see them in action.
Bertha, okay? After COVID ended, Bertha Berger struggled to put on her blue jeans. They seemed much tighter than usual, so she stepped on the bathroom scale and received the bad news. Based on this story, do you think that there is dramatic irony when it comes?
Just seeing your beautiful faces and all those smiles just made me so very happy. Can you give me a smile and a thumbs up? Thank you so much. And I look forward to again meeting, coming back to this Meet class and teaching another lesson with you.
That's the one that I was trying to answer, and then the one that what I responded to was like, I think they're looking at like their destination or what the journey that they have ahead of them.
Wow. Google Meet is also used by teachers to attend professional development and to collaborate with each other across the district.
But for big ideas, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, as teachers, when you make an assignment, you can actually share it with people using a link, and it will create the assignment for them.
Yeah, and so that's definitely a tool we're going to want to use.
Finally, here in the Littleton Elementary School District, student safety is of utmost importance. Google Meet for Education gives educators control over their meetings, making them more secure. Only meeting creators can mute or remove other participants. This ensures that instructors can't be removed or muted by student participants. Only meeting creators can approve requests to join made by anyone outside of the school's domain. This means that students can't allow external participants to join via video, and that external participants can't join before an instructor. Students are not able to rejoin meetings once the final participant has left. So if the instructor is the last person to leave a meeting, students can't join again until the instructor restarts the meeting. So as you can see, the features in Google Meet help educators in the Littleton Elementary School District keep meetings safe for everyone.
We hope you enjoyed this video, as we all recognized how challenging the opening of this school year has been, but how many incredible things are happening in our school district as we continue to engage our families, our students and staff in the student learning process. The Littleton School District has developed a Parent Help Center website as a resource for our families to provide support during distance learning. You can learn more about Google Classroom, Google Meet, and tools we use for online classes, as well as digital curriculum resources. There is also a button at the bottom of the page for parents to submit requests for help. Parents can learn more by visiting our district webpage and clicking on the Littleton Parents Help Center. Teachers and administrators have been doing an excellent job sending remind messages to our families, answering emails, and responding to phone calls to support engagement. We appreciate our teachers and our leaders. We want to thank the Educational Services Department, Ms. Lucy Ito, Language Acquisition Specialist, for putting together this informative and engaging video. We look forward to continuing to engage all families in their children's educational experience during the current dynamic distance model. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have for me at this time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Vanderwater. Appreciate the information. Any of you or members of the board have a question or comment? Very good. If none, we'll go to item number 11. Ms. Vanderwater, this is back to you, the Integrated Action Plan. This is for information tonight.
Thank you, President Rader, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman. Before introducing our 3 principals to present their school's Integrated Action Plan, I would like to provide you with an overview of the Integrated Action Plan and school improvement process. The Comprehensive Needs Assessment, Root Cause Analysis, and Integrated Action Plan for all Title I schools includes Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, School Improvement, and Move On When Reading. Schools will use the 6 principles, indicators, and elements to identify strengths and needs in order to increase student achievement and strengthen school systems, leading to sustainable improvement. The primary needs identified in the Comprehensive Needs Assessment become the foundation for the school's Integrated Action Plan. The local education agency Integrated Action Plan is based on the school's Comprehensive Needs Assessment findings. It supports the implementation of the school Integrated Action Plan. In order for Title I schools to receive and maintain federal school funding for continuous improvement, the Arizona Department of Education requires all schools to complete a comprehensive and rigorous process. If the Arizona Department of Education School Support Improvement Division approves the plan, then they provide professional learning to empower and support schools and local education agencies by offering evidence-based practices, equity-centered decision-making, and a multitude of resources. Training and ongoing support of the Comprehensive Needs Assessment, Root Cause Analysis, and Integrated Action Plan, continuous improvement process and implementation, and the opportunity for the co-creation of high expectations and accountability measures. Each school site is mandated to conduct a thorough and reflective data analysis to determine needs, implement necessary changes throughout the continuous improvement process. Then equitable, strength-based local education agencies and schools will increase system and individual capacity, ensuring equity, excellence, and innovation, resulting in increased student outcomes. On this slide, you are viewing a linear view of the school improvement process to address the unique needs of each school site. Each school site engaged in the following process to develop their school's Integrated Action Plan. The first step in the process is the Comprehensive Needs Assessment. Through this, school leadership teams collaborated to conduct a rigorous self-assessment of 6 principles for school improvement, including effective leadership, effective teachers and instruction, effective organization of time, effective curriculum, climate and culture, and family and community engagement. There are several indicators under each of the 6 principles to provide the school leadership team with a comprehensive analysis to help them determine areas of focus for the coming year. The second step in the process is the identification of a few focus areas and a root cause analysis identifying the few factors for setting goals in these areas. After discussion among the leadership team and analysis of data, key indicators under specific principles are selected as areas of focus, and a root cause analysis process is conducted to determine foundational reasons that underlie specific areas of concern. The third step in the process is the articulation of needs, goals, strategies, and action steps. Once a root cause has been determined, the leadership team develops a needs statement and articulates the desired outcome in a goal statement. Next, they develop evidence-based strategies and action steps to accomplish their goal. Finally, the plan is communicated and vetted with the broader school staff, and implementation of actions occurs with ongoing monitoring and evaluation of progress toward reaching the identified goals. Monitoring and evaluation of progress towards reaching a goal can be accomplished in a variety of ways, depending on the identified need, and can include both qualitative or quantitative measures. A few examples of monitoring in our district and evaluation include instructional rounds, classroom walkthroughs, student and staff surveys, student achievement data, collaboration in professional learning communities around the 4 critical questions, and progress monitoring. In this next slide, continuous improvement and integrated action processes are, as you can see, cyclical and continuous, beginning with the comprehensive needs assessment. In education, the process of continuous improvement refers to any school or instructional improvement process that unfolds progressively, that does not have a fixed or predetermined endpoint, and that is sustained over extended periods of time. This concept also encompasses the general belief that improvement is not something that starts or stops, but it's something that requires an organization and professional commitment to the ongoing process of learning, self-reflection, and growth. Tonight, each principal will highlight for the community and governing board 2 of the 6 goals that were established as a focus for the FY21 school year. It does not mean that the school community is not working on all 6 goals, but for presentation purposes this evening, they will be highlighting 2 of their goals for you. At this time, I would like to introduce Mr. Brian D'Alessio, principal from Collier Elementary School. Mr. D'Alessio.
Good evening. Can you hear me? All right, awesome, thank you. All righty, so good evening, Governing Board President, Governing Board members, and Dr. Freeman. Thank you for this opportunity to share Collier's Integrated Action Plan tonight. Last spring, our staff completed surveys to help us determine what our greatest needs are. These surveys, in collaboration with school leaders, created the IEP, which will be presented tonight. The IEP is made up of 6 principles, from effective leadership to family and community engagement. I'll focus on 2 of these goals tonight. Goal 1, ELA achievement for all students will increase by 8%, moving from 31% proficient and or highly proficient on the 2019 AZM2 to 39% on the 2021 AZM2. As you know, the 2020 AZM2 was canceled due to the current pandemic. We determined 8% was an appropriate goal due to past growth. Collier grew 3% from 2018 to 2019 in overall ELA proficiency, and 8% equals an increase of approximately 2 students per classroom moving to proficient or highly proficient. We have developed short-term goals and action steps to achieve this end of the year goal. We have already begun professional development around our ELA curriculum to increase teacher understanding and proficiency. These trainings are facilitated by textbook publisher representatives, district and school coaches, administration, and teacher leaders. After trainings, the school leadership team conducts walkthroughs to assure the curriculum and resources are being used effectively. Feedback is provided to teachers in the form of praise and thoughtful questions. This information is also used to develop future trainings following the continuous growth model. Teachers are also provided weekly and professional learning around professional learning communities, or PLCs. Grade level and content teams meet a minimum of once a week to identify essential standards, create common formative assessments, review data, and determine next steps for remediation and enrichment. The district and the school are also working with a representative from Solution Tree to improve the PLC process. This process also improves teacher efficacy and focuses on continuous improvement. Through the PLC process, teachers will use data to place students into small groups. Teachers use these small groups to differentiate instruction to focus on remediation strategies based on each group's need. Student data is collected from the CFAs, or those common formative assessments, progress monitoring, and quarterly interim assessments. The second goal I'd like to share with you is our plan to increase family engagement. The percent of parents participating in goal-oriented activities that support student learning will increase by 50% from August 2020 to May 2021 using survey data. The survey will collect both qualitative and quantitative data to give us a well-rounded picture of our process around this goal, as well as providing possible next steps. We understand the power of having a strong home and school connection and want to increase this relationship. Our teachers work with students every day to increase student agency. This involves setting goals, initiating action towards those goals, and reflecting on and regulating progress towards those goals. In this process, we have missed the connection to our families. Our action steps include providing parent education information around student goals and how these goals support student growth and achievement. It is important that our families understand how student Lexile level, Acadian's benchmark, progress monitoring, and interim assessments relate to student learning and grade level expectations. Students will also maintain personal learning data folders that will be shared with the home. Students and teachers will periodically be expected to share their progress with their families for feedback and celebrations. This supports our process of student-led parent conferences where students take on the responsibility and ownership for their own learning. By May, families will understand their child's goals and data and how this data is collected and what strategies they can use at home to support their child's academic successes. This concludes my IAP presentation. Are there any questions?
This is Kathy. I have a few.
Yes.
So on principle 2, talking about effective teachers and instructions, the measurement tool measured by teachers' observations. And so when that's measured, it's measured by observation only, and is there a score sheet? Or, I mean, that seems pretty subjective. I'm just wondering how you're able to identify that.
No, it's a great question. Our district, we use the 2013 Danielson Teaching and Learning rubric. When I say we, the leadership team, administrators, receive training each year on the rubric. We conduct observations with one another to create the inter-rater reliability. And the rubrics are shared with staff every year of what we're looking for, what the expectations are, and then we provide feedback during our walkthroughs and our observations to improve practice in the classroom.
And just a follow-up to that, how often do you walk through?
Well, right now in our current learning, we drop in, so to speak. Our goal is to provide feedback to teachers once every 2 weeks, either myself, our assistant principal, dean of students, or our instructional coach. Once things get back to normal, again, our goal is to try to be in every classroom at least once every 2 weeks to provide feedback for teachers.
Okay. And then one more question. The goal of the 6 principles is based on all of that you're doing. If they were all to be, if they all work at the measurements you anticipate, that should lead to what?
Well, I think each goal has its own effect. Many of them do kind of align with one another. First and foremost is increasing student achievement. So increasing the proficiency and highly proficient based on the end of year AZM2. But we also believe that, including families and parent engagement, as well as under Principle 5 with improving the climate and culture on campus. So, you know, we know we're not all about numbers, but data does drive a big part of what we do and why we do it. And we know that our school labels are based on those end of year scores. So that's a big part of it, but there's also, you know, some of the warm and fuzzies that you can't really measure with data as well.
Right. I agree with the warm and fuzzies. That's just as important sometimes as, you know, the other part. But when you're all said and done, if your goals are to work and your plan overview, and I mean, we all are measured by something, your student achievement would increase by what? Any idea what these outcomes would bring?
Well, we've set the goal at 8% for both ELA and for math. We just use that number based on the trends that we've seen in the past, and then the strategies and action steps that we have. So if all these goals are met and come to fruition, we would see a minimum of 8% growth in both ELA and math.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kathy. Any others? Mr. Gillespie, thank you for your presentation.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Delestio. I would now like to introduce Mr. Steve Rickert from Trace Rios Service Academy to present his integrated action plan.
Thank you again, Ms. Vandewater, and good evening, President Nielsen, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman, and E-Team. It is my privilege to share with you tonight Trace Rios's IAP for the 2020-2021 school year. I would like to bring your attention to our first goal. By May 2021, Trace Rios Service Academy will increase family and community engagement in meaningful opportunities that support student learning by 20%, as evidenced by participation at academically focused school events. Research has indicated that when parents and families are engaged with the school, children are more likely to earn higher test scores, develop self-confidence and motivation, and demonstrate better social skills. In addition, parent engagement has shown to help decrease chronic absenteeism. With this research in mind, we have developed a set of action steps to ensure opportunities for higher levels of student and family engagement. Professional development opportunities for school administrators around instructional leadership, culture, and stakeholder engagement will be intentionally sought out. Learning from these opportunities will be shared out with staff and used to strategically strengthen the home-to-school partnership. Parents are vital to their children's education. Through consistent communication and collaborative partnership, we will identify common and individual needs and provide appropriate training and resources. Our stakeholders play a critical role in the success of our school. In order to cultivate this critical partnership, we are holding bi-monthly campus conversations. Our families and community members will have the opportunity to join staff for dialogue around identified topics of importance. Surveys were sent out through Remind and on Facebook to our families, and the responses to these surveys will drive the agenda for our family engagement night. Evidence that our efforts have been successful includes increased family participation in school events, a more informed and engaged group of stakeholders, and families having conversations with students and teachers about achievement data. I would now like to introduce our second. During the 2020-2021 school year, all students will monitor their learning through goal setting, progress tracking, and conferences with their teachers in order to achieve our school-wide growth goal of an average of 80% or higher, as evidenced by our math intervention Dreambox. The psychological sciences have shown that when we are able to provide students with choice and ownership over their learning, their curiosity is stimulated and their motivation to learn increases. Furthermore, appropriate choice and control has proven to be a positive influencer over achievement. In order to provide students with an opportunity to take ownership over their learning, we have developed the following set of action steps. Teachers will participate in professional development and have access to resources on rigor and relevance of instruction and student agency. The learning from these professional development opportunities will better prepare them to guide students in their goal setting, action planning, and reflection. A key component to students taking ownership over their learning is their progress tracking. Based on this data, teachers will strategically provide students with research-based interventions or extensions. Teachers and students will closely monitor the effectiveness of these interventions and extensions by tracking their progress made towards their goals. As students' needs are identified, more intense strategic support may be appropriate in the form of before and after school tutoring. Students identified for these opportunities will benefit from small group learning tailored to their individualized level. This initiation of action would leave students better positioned to attain their goals. Evidence that our efforts have been successful include expanded teacher understanding and implementation of practices that promote student agency, increase in students' ownership over their learning, and a rise in our student achievement levels in mathematics. Thank you for your time. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Any questions from any of the board members?
I don't have a question. I have more of a comment. Really appreciate the collaborative partnership, the recognition of culture, and the bi-monthly conversations that are intended to open up dialogue. It's great to see.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I just have one comment as well. I like the layout. I liked the fact that you talked about it and then made the initiative of how you were going to approach it very clear. And I think that will be very clear to parents, communities, and our students. And so that was a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Nielsen, this is Mr. Rader. Just one quick question. Is the before and after school tutoring offered for students in mathematics, is that being provided for all students in need it by our teachers? Can you just expand on that just a little bit, please?
Yeah, so teachers do, they do offer before and after school tutoring for students identified for a need. And so right now, obviously it's in a virtual format, but they do look at data points and find students who could use the extra support, and then we'll provide it, like I said, either in a before or after school.
And just a quick follow-up, and we have the capacity to do that, and teachers are doing that as part of their normal job, or is this an extra duty that they're taking on as a part of this plan?
So they do it in one of two ways. We allocated money in our Title I to compensate teachers for tutoring, if that's one route we can explore. And then some of them do also as part of the 301.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your comments. Any others? Ms. Reichert, thank you very much for your presentation here tonight. We've
Thank you,
appreciated
Mr.
it.
Rickert.
Thank you both.
I'd now like to introduce Dr. Nicole Durazo, principal of Estrella Vista STEM Academy, to share her integrated action plan.
Good evening, Governing Board President Nilsson, Governing Board members, Dr. Freeman, and Littleton community. I'm excited to present our Estrella Vista STEM Academy Integrated Action Plan this evening. To begin, I would like to share the process that began last February with our needs assessment. We completed the needs assessment as a collaborative community with input from our certified and classified staff. Through that process, we were able to identify key areas for improvement, two of which I would like to share with you this evening. Our first SMART goal: the EV staff will create and implement a STEM engineering vision for learning through a collaborative process to support high levels of student learning as measured by informal and formal student assessments. Currently, our student achievement goal is to increase reading and math student achievement by 5% in grades 3 through 8 as measured by AZ-M2. Currently, we were at 48% proficient on AZ Merit 2019, and we'd like to increase that to 53% proficient AZ Merit 2021. Our primary need. We identified the primary need to create a new shared vision for rigorous STEM engineering learning. With the change in staff and leadership, it is necessary to reestablish and revitalize our STEM implementation. Therefore, staff and students and parents of EV need to create a vision for rigorous STEM engineering learning focused on high expectations for all learners. Our root cause. The root cause for our primary need is that there currently is no established, agreed upon STEM engineering vision for EV. Our desired outcome. Our desired outcome is to establish a clear STEM engineering vision that is supported and shared by all stakeholders to increase high levels of learning for all students. The strategies and action steps and monitoring activities we will use to accomplish this goal include the following. We applied for and were awarded the competitive STEM School of the Future grant through Phoenix Suns Charities and NAU. The Phoenix Suns Charities STEM Schools for the Future is a K-8 professional learning program designed for schools who are beginning or are currently focused on integrating STEM learning school-wide. The program's purpose is to assist schools to develop a more STEM literate workforce by building school capacity to design and implement effective STEM instruction. The Center for Science Teaching and Learning at NAU will guide us to provide experiences which encourage students to use an interdisciplinary STEM approach to solve real-world issues in order to develop critical 21st century thinking skills and become better prepared for living in a complex global society. The program implementation plan aligns with research-based best practices for professional learning and STEM education. The program will have 3 distinct cohorts, and the STEM school cohorts will focus on 4 main pillars, which include Pillar 1, STEM school systematic change. A science leadership team has been formed consisting of 4 members, myself, 4 teachers, and also a community partner. Pillar 2, STEM Teacher Academy. Of the 4 teachers on the leadership team, 2 will be enrolled in the academy. They will become experts in STEM instruction and planning and will receive a certificate documenting their professional learning experiences. Pillar 3, STEM assessment. Leadership teams will engage with exciting STEM teaching protocols and develop new STEM teaching assessments. Pillar 4, STEM School Advisory Board. Past APS STEM-focused school teachers and administrators will work with the NAU project staff to continually improve the program and will advise the current school's leadership teams. We are excited to be part of this 3-year professional development program, and we are confident that it will strengthen our STEM engineering program. In addition, we will also empower our teacher leaders with the creation of the science leadership team. We will engage with NAU. The science leadership team members will take part in a 3-year-long professional development partnership with NAU to revitalize our STEM initiative. We will then train staff. Our science leadership team members will provide professional development for the entire staff on STEM engineering best practices, focused to include strategies and support to integrate content areas. We will provide teachers with professional development on project-based learning to strengthen our implementation and use of project-based learning with our STEM engineering focus. And we will plan and implement 1 integrated STEM showcase lesson for the end of the year. Our success criteria and evidence in accomplishing our goals include our science leadership team agendas, our innovation configuration map, which is a roadmap for our STEM implementation, our STEM professional development evaluation results, our STEM vision is evident in all areas on our campus, and ultimately that our STEM vision is known and understood by all stakeholders. Our second SMART goal to share this evening is to increase our parent and community involvement by 20% as measured by participation and sign-in logs. We also hope to see more positive results on our end of the year parent survey. Through our needs assessment, we determined the primary need to establish more collaborative and supportive parent and community partnerships. We found that some, and not all, parents and community members feel welcome and supported at our site. and we are committed to change that to all parents and community members call EV home, just as the staff and I do. Therefore, our primary need is for staff to establish collaborative partnerships with parents and community to support high levels of student learning. Our needs assessment determined the root cause is a lack of authentic relationships amongst teachers, staff, and parents. Our desired outcome is to promote ongoing two-way communication between parents and teachers to build positive relationships and to engage in a collaborative process to include various stakeholders in decision-making to establish high expectations for learning for all. The strategies, action steps, and monitoring activities we will use to accomplish this goal include increased parent communication. We will utilize our new dynamic digital communicator to increase positive communication about our school through social media, our Facebook, our Twitter, which we've talked about in the past board meetings, and our regular positive school happening posts. Focus on relationships by building positive, nurturing relationships with students, parents, and community members. We'd like to increase our parent engagement opportunities, provide opportunities for parents and community engagement at the school site, and increase the use of Remind. We'd like to increase the two-way communication between parents and teachers to support student success. Our success criteria and evidence in accomplishing this goal include increased parent and community participation, increase in positive responses on parent survey data, increase in the amount of community partners that we have, increase in Remind messages and conversations, increase in different venues being used to share positive school news and happenings. In addition to the two goals shared this evening, we will also continue our work on our professional learning communities to strengthen the collaboration within the grade level, as well as across grade levels and content areas. We are excited and confident that our goals will allow us to build an even stronger learning community and increase our student achievement. This concludes our EV Integrated Action Plan Goals Overview, pending any questions from the board.
Thank you so very much, Raza. Are there any of the board members that would like to make a comment or a question at a particular time?
This is Kathy. I just a quick statement, if I may.
Please, go ahead.
Mine is just more, and I'm sure you know it, I can't visually see it. So, and you don't have to address it today. You can always come back and talk about it. But when you say, you use the word a lot, increase in your integrated action plan a lot, but I don't know your measurement of increase. Is it, how will you determine, when you say increase parents, increase positive responses, increase, how are you tying that all together and in terms of success and building on that, so that you ultimately have some outcome at the end? And again, I didn't see it or hear it in your presentation. I think it's a lot of great strategic and action plans. I don't know if I was the only one that missed how it was all put together and what the percentages was you were hoping to build on. And again, you can bring it back later. That was just more my comments. So thank you.
I can address it now if you'd like. It's actually listed by, we'd like to increase by 20% from previous years, and we will measure that by our participation and sign-in logs.
Okay, so 20% across both overviews.
The SMART goal for our STEM vision is that we will implement a STEM vision. So once we have determined that, our science leadership team, we have already created that STEM vision. Our next step is to bring it to our instructional leadership team. From there, then we will bring it to the whole staff. And then once we have that set, that goal is accomplished. Then we just need to make sure that that is shared, agreed upon, and communicated to all stakeholders. So with the, well, no, that one isn't, that one doesn't have an actual measure in percentage.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a follow-up question, if I might, Curtis.
Perlette, please.
It's along the same lines as Kathy, related to the increase, but mine is more specifically on the goal regarding parent and community participation. So since I see you did a root cause, I'm assuming you did some problem solving to determine what the challenges are, but I wanted to confirm that. The challenges in terms of the communication between the district or the school and parents. Am I correct? And if so, what did you learn from the problem solving and the root cause analysis that was done in terms of what the barriers might be?
And that's a great question. And that was a really awesome process that we went through as a staff. Within the comprehensive needs assessment, there are guiding questions for each principal. And there's very explicit language that moves you through on a Likert scale. And I was very surprised how honest and genuine and authentic the teachers were in doing those questioning activities. And we debated a lot, but we honestly had to determine, you know what, we don't reach all of our parents. We can't say that we meet all. And that is some of the language that is in the comprehensive needs assessment. It kind of goes from none to a few, some, and then all. So we had to really reflect and be honest and ask ourselves as teachers and educators, do we reach out as often as we should? Do we seek opportunities to engage more with our parents? Are we as welcoming, encouraging, and open as we'd like to be? And through that discussion and that reflection, we determined, you know what, that's an area that we can improve, because we want every member of our community to feel welcome. First and foremost, I say this a lot with the staff, what I want for our kids and what I want for our parents when they step on the EV campus, that everyone feels safe, valued, loved, and respected. And we found that some of our parents, through that process and that problem solving with our teachers, we couldn't honestly say that everyone felt that way, but that is what we are committed to this year and continuing that in the future.
I really, honestly, deeply appreciate the response that you gave. I think so many times we focus on the things we do well and we don't really honestly identify where we have weaknesses. And so by doing a self-assessment and looking at how we don't necessarily reach all parents, as you indicated, and in the space of where that gap is, looking for opportunities to engage more meaningfully is wonderful. It's exactly what we should be doing. Thank you so much for your feedback on that.
Thank you.
And leadership.
Thank you, Perlette. Any other rest of you?
Dr. Durazo.
Thank you so very much. At the end of your presentation, Ms. Vanderwater, you want to say any more?
Yes, thank you, President Nielsen.
All right, and we'll move on to item number 12, please. Mr. French, would you like to present this information to us with the possibility of an action?
I will. Thank you, sir. Sue, can you pull up the presentation? Thank you. Okay, good evening, President Nielsen, governing board members, Dr. Freeman, Littleton community and staff. This evening, we will be discussing the COVID-19 liability coverage offered by the trust, the background of why the coverage is separated from our current policy, and the possible cost to the district if it is decided to purchase the endorsement. So a little background. Before the start of each fiscal year, the trust works with reinsurance partners, which are companies that provide additional limits, to coordinate coverage. As part of this process for the 2020-21 renewal, the reinsurers notified the trust that there would be an organic pathogen exclusion in their policy. The logic of the exclusion is that, similar to proving the source of a cold or a flu, there is essentially no way of knowing where or how someone contracts COVID-19. Without protections against potential losses, the trust had no choice but to exclude COVID-19 liability claims from member districts, including Littleton. The potential solution was presented to Littleton on July 20th and was approved by the trust board on August 4th. Next slide, Sue. So for the COVID-19 endorsement, there are a list of preconditions in order to qualify for this endorsement. The district will not qualify for this coverage if it decides not to require at least an acknowledgement form from our students. The acknowledgement and waiver forms were developed as a tool to help districts make the fiscally prudent decisions necessary to bring students and teachers back to school safely. Although Littleton is taking numerous steps to protect student, staff, and the community from the spread of COVID-19, it is impossible to reduce the risk to zero. As an example, students may contract COVID-19 outside of school, show no symptoms, and unintentionally infect the class. The forms are another way of acknowledging that no matter how hard we try, the district cannot control every environmental variable. We also have to implement a reopening plan that incorporates guidelines issued by AD, which we have already done. Next slide, please. This slide shows a table of endorsement deductible that would be accompany the endorsement itself. If you take a look at the $0 deductible, there would be $0 deductible for each claim relating to a student for whom the district has obtained a signed waiver, release, and assumption of risk form. There would be a $10,000 deductible for each occurrence for claims relating to a student for whom the district has obtained a signed acknowledgement disclosure form, and a $20,000 deductible for each occurrence for claims with no waiver or acknowledgement form. That would be somebody that potentially walked onto campus, a parent potentially that has not signed an acknowledgement or a waiver, that decided to claim that they received COVID on campus and sue us for damages. Next slide. This table shows the cost to member districts by ADM range. Littleton falls in the 5,001 to 10,000 ADM range, and the district premium would be $75,000. Next slide. There are endorsement limits to this COVID-19 liability coverage, and they are $1 million for each occurrence, $10,000 per claimant in indemnity coverage, provided that the other limits identified are not exhausted. So a claimant could be one child, could be one parent, or if the entire family is a claims, they could be multiple claimants on each claim. There would be a $2 million annual aggregate per district. That means that they would not cover us if our claims exceeded $2 million. And there would be a $25 million shared annual aggregate for all member districts of the trust. So we bring this to you this evening because if we do decide that we would wish to purchase this, the endorsement would be retroactive to July 1st if we have signed and returned to the trust by September 15th. If we decide that we are waiting on this and we sign and return after September 15th, the coverage would be effective on the date of the endorsement is signed. The trust did state that the intent of this coverage is not to make a windfall, that if coverage is not used by member districts or if Congress provides immunity to school districts, the funds would be returned to districts in the form of a loyalty credit. However, they did not state how much of that premium would be returned. Next slide. It is the recommendation of the district to purchase the COVID liability endorsement from the trust and require parents to sign a waiver to return to in-person instruction. And with that, I'll open up to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. French. Any questions from members of the board?
This is Kathy. I have a few, if I may.
Go ahead, Kathy.
So how many members are in the district trust?
Member Reyes, I should know, I don't know the exact number, but I believe it's upwards of 250.
districts?
Correct.
Okay, so a vast majority.
Yes.
And just to be clear, this is for parents signing for themselves and their family, including their children, or?
Correct. So the waiver would be a waiver for the family itself, which include all students and parents.
And not teachers, or teachers are separate, admin staff is separate. Is that also requiring a liability form?
No, that would not require it. Teachers and all staff of Littleton Elementary would fall under workers' compensation, which they are still covering through our other policies.
Okay, even though workers' comp at this time is not declared COVID compensable, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so how are they covered then? I'm confused.
We had asked that questions of the trust. They had told us that that staff members do not need to sign a waiver or an acknowledgement to come back to work, because the claims that they would be filing would be filed under workers' compensation.
Okay, where they're paid or not is irrelevant. They could be filed under that mechanism, correct?
That is my understanding.
Okay, and then this is because the trust, when they went out to get additional reinsurance or whatever, the carrier said, wait, this is not a liability we agreed to take on for X premium. In order to be able to do it, here's the additional cost and here's your choices. Do I have that right?
So Member Reyes, when they went out with their reinsurers, they basically told them they will not be covering any COVID related expenses because their balance sheets could not cover it.
Right.
This is an endorsement that is coming directly from the trust. There are no reinsurers involved.
Okay, so this is just money that's collected that they think they need this additional amount in order to cover potential family COVID issues for the 250 districts. Everybody's charged X amount and that goes into a pot?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Ms. Reyes, I think that they have set aside and will offset with premium the 25 million, and that's why you have a cap.
Right.
And the fee structure, I think, is designed to help get them to the cap based on the members.
Okay.
And our concern is that given some of the conduct of the accident claim attorneys, districts might be treated differently whether they have or do not have the coverage. The trust has multiple insurance services, but this is the risk retention trust for our property and liability. It's set separately from the other segments of insurance that we have, and handle all of that for us. So the problem with underwriting is there's no actuarial data to write a rate on.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I find it quite interesting, actually. I'm surprised more forms like this aren't coming out for other entities because of all the controversial surrounding the COVID liability potential. So, no, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Any of the rest of you? So just one question, Mr. French. The $75,000 is for 1 year, right?
That is correct, President Nielsen. That is for fiscal year 21. They have not come out and discussed anything having to do with fiscal year 22 yet. So we will reassess at the end of fiscal year 21.
And you did say that if the government does come out with some additional funding to cover this, that the $75,000, some portion of that would be returned to us.
Yes, President Nielsen, that would come back to us in form of a loyalty trust credit. They have not come out to tell us the mechanisms for getting that back or the amount, but they did make it clear to us that they are not looking for a windfall in this type of coverage, and if it's not used, or that it will come back to the member district.
Thank you very much.
It would be interesting just to know what percentage they're willing to give back. I mean, they must have some kind of idea. I'm surprised they're not. Maybe they don't have an idea of it. I don't know.
Ms. Reyes, Mr. President, members of the board, I think people have been and remain hopeful that Congress will come up with some immunity legislation. And of course, that would limit the risk completely if that were to pass. There wouldn't be a need for waiver or for premium. So that could still happen if they start, or when they start to play nice. And you can call your senators.
Understand.
I assume we have money in the budget to take care of this.
Yes, President Nielsen, we have budgeted the funds in order to pay for premiums if the board recommends approving.
Thank you. Do any of you, the rest of you, have any other questions you'd like to direct toward Mr. French at this time? If not, could I have a motion to approve that?
This is Kathy, and I'll move the governing board approve the purchase of the COVID endorsement for the 2021 fiscal year and have families sign a waiver for each person.
This is Amy, and I second.
Okay. Ada, can you make a roll call?
Nielsen?
Aye.
Mr. Rader?
Aye.
Dr. Ramos?
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes?
Aye.
Mrs. Sashnik?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Dr. Freedom, item number 13, phase reopening.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I want to go through this item a little bit and first say that what will happen next with COVID and the metrics in our school district, we do not know. We're following the data and the science, but there's the one thing we do seem to know for certain about the spread of this disease is that it changes all the time. And so planning for that has been quite a challenge. We have put together a series of start dates for you to consider that follow each board meeting, and I'll go through that whole list. What we have is that you consider options for phased reopening with Model B. If you elected to do something like that today, we would want to start on the 21st, which would give us 3 weeks of implementation before the fall break. If you don't want to start anything, you don't have to. It's just our recommendation for if we're going to do another phase that we time it so that we have a couple weeks to prepare and 3 weeks to implement and see how that goes before we go to fall break, because fall break could obviously change metrics, just like Labor Day week may change the metrics if people's behavior changes. So it's important for people to understand how the metrics work. And I don't know if, Sue, if you can make that table any bigger. This works like kind of like a stoplight function. So red is stop, yellow is caution, and green is go. There are 3 metrics, which are on the left. And so they are cases, COVID-like illnesses, and then percent positivity. So cases is going to be those people who are actually, I think, hospitalized. And as you know, in Arizona, that's down significantly right now. So the green category is less than 5% for illness and positivity. It's less than 10 cases for COVID illness or for actually being seen at the hospital. Then yellow, the moderate one, is 10 to 100, and then the 5 to 10 range for positivity and illness. And the red is above 100, above 10%. So the most recent period, which was reported last Thursday, had Littleton at 59.8 cases, which is yellow, and 10.1% positivity, which is red. The number of COVID-like illness cases we have is being extrapolated from county data. So is that all the information before supporting documents? So let's go ahead and open up the COVID metrics data for the last period. This is a simulation of what happens when you go to the county website and look at the COVID metrics by school district. And this was on the 3rd. If you'd looked at it the week before, most of the West Valley was red. On the 27th of August and before. So what's happened is in the last reporting period, you can see more yellow opening up. Now what yellow means for the county is the hybrid model. Green would be going back to school 5 days in person, green light. Yellow would be some form of hybrid option where kids are in school part of the time with social distancing and all the other mitigation strategies in place. And I've circled the Littleton School District. What you can see is the Tolleson system is red, along with Cartwright, it looks like Alhambra, Glendale, Riverside, Levine, Roosevelt, Creighton is still red. And so there's a handful of school districts that have mostly higher positivity than other places, and we're one of them. So when you see Dysart or Peoria's opening, their metrics are different than the school districts that are in mostly in the Tolleson region. So if we look at the data on the next slide, what I've done here is just pulled out Maricopa County and Arizona and Littleton. So the numbers that are in the middle are Littleton's numbers for September 3rd. So well, let me go through the legend for you. So Littleton District is LD, and then COVID percent positive is CPP. Littleton District CPI is COVID percent illness. And then right below that, you see Littleton District COVID per 100,000. So Maricopa County, COVID percent positive, Maricopa County, COVID percent illness, Arizona, COVID percent positive, Arizona, COVID percent illness. Those are the three metrics. So there's 9 markers on this slide for September 3rd. And the low numbers are the COVID percent illness. So that's at 5.2 for Maricopa County. And then it was at 2.7 for the state, and Littleton is just extrapolated to 2.0. We had run for 2 or 3 weeks at 3. I'll show you that graph in a minute. So our numbers are the blue numbers, 10.1, which is red, 59.8, which is yellow, and 2.0, which is green. So we have the full stoplight. You can see on the left are the state numbers, 47, 4.6, and 2.7, and the right are Maricopa's numbers, 42, 6.0, and 5.2. So I don't know that there is really a pattern here, except to say that we have 2 measures of the 3 that sit out above both the county and the state pretty clearly. Let's go to the next graph. And what we've done here is taken those three entities, Littleton, Maricopa, and Arizona, and presented them over time. If we extended this back in time another month, those metrics would be a lot higher. And so what I've done is just chopped off this data. At the bottom of the graph, you'll see the reporting dates, and might be a little hard to read, but the first one is August 6th. And the last one is September 3rd, the most recent one from last Thursday. You see a general downward trend in the COVID metrics. You can see, though, the top blue line is the Littleton line, where we dropped down to 14.5, then bounced back up to 16.7, came down to 13.6, and then 10.1. If we were to extend that line, we would be next week into the yellow territory. We'd have 2 yellows and a green, which would mean next week we could be eligible to be a hybrid school district. We don't know what next week holds yet, but we'll take a peek at that shortly. You don't really need to be able to find all the trends and numbers in that line. You can see the state line, that red line, just almost making a straight line down. It has the most cases and is probably the most averaged. And the county moving around a little bit as well. County starting out high, that green line that was higher than us, then takes a big drop and now is reporting lower than we are. So if this graph doesn't tell you anything else, is that it's really hard to predict when things are going to go up and down depending on the unit of measure. So what we did at the next graph is just took everybody else's measures out and are showing you Littleton. And you can see on the very first measure from August 6th that our illnesses were still in the yellow range, but on August 13th, we dropped into the green range. Most of the school districts in the county are now in the green range because that those illness cases have really recovered from the peak of the spread. You can see that we had 2 red metrics as recent as, well, we still have 1 red metric from Thursday. From the week before, those illnesses were still red. They just moved into the yellow range on the 3rd. So that's the trends for the last 5 measures for the district. And all of them were higher in the 4 weeks preceding that. But because that data is so old, we didn't include that in the graph. On the side, you can see on the left side, the green, yellow, and red, that you're green from 0 to 5, you're yellow from 5 to 10, and you're red from all the rest of the way up. On the other scale, because both of these lines are graphed on the same chart for you, is the illnesses which run in the hundreds. You can see the little teeny bit of green at the bottom is 0 to 10. The yellow is from 10 to 100. Everything above that is red. And so if we go then to the next slide, what we looked at is in the next 2 weeks, what might happen. If the data continues to go down, by this Thursday, we could be at 7.1 and 4.1, just extending that line. If we let the percent positivity to continue, well, that would be the percent positivity. If we let the cases per 100,000 just sort of ease off, we probably would be into the green area in a week or 2 as well. Now that's a positive scenario. That is everybody keeping their mask on and not congregating in areas in ways that would cause an increase in the spread. You could see something else in the next slide. which is people go out and start sharing germs again, and the numbers go up. So this depends on people's behavior more than anything that would be in control of the school district. On the next slide is some options. So let's go back down, Sue, to the one that we were just on. One of the things that I want to point out to you, the measurement dates are on the bottom, which was the 3rd of September, the 27th of 27th of August, if you look up at the top, what you see is I have the last measure is the 3rd of September. So when we get a measurement on September 17, it will be from the 3rd of September. If you go and look at the 3rd of September, which is the last one that's not shaded, and those are the numbers I gave you first, those numbers are actually from August 20th. They're 2 weeks old. So what happens is you're looking at a 2-week delay in numbers. So we gave you a 2-week window to look at what might happen. Probably the next data to come out will tell us a lot about the trend. But one of the problems we'll have is if there's a lot of congregating over the Labor Day weekend, that illness may not show up for 2 weeks, in which case you could see a spike in 2 weeks that would be reflected in our district data 2 weeks from there. In other words, it may take a month to see if there's an increase in COVID spread from the Labor Day holiday. All right, so there's the conundrum. What we've done is looked at the board meetings and said, okay, today is September 8th. If we wanted to implement a program, we could do that on the 21st. We would have 3 weeks until fall break. Our next meeting is at the beginning of October. If we wanted to implement a program, we could do that the Monday after break ends. That would give us 4 or 5 weeks until the Thanksgiving break. For our meeting in November, because of the way it falls on the calendar, a couple of weeks would actually be right in the middle of Thanksgiving. If we wanted to make a phased program decision, we would return to school with that phase right after the Thanksgiving holiday on Monday. That would be 3 weeks of implementation before the winter break. And if you want to wait until the December meeting, because of winter break, the first time to implement a phased program change would be January 4th, 2021. What we've done right now in anticipation of the board's discussion tonight is checked to see if we have teachers who would be willing to come back to do some in-person instruction at the kindergarten, first and second grades. And it's about half of them, but they're not equally distributed across schools and grades. We are asking the teachers in those grades to check on Remind with their parents to see how people feel about returning to school now, because we think that what they said a month ago and what they said 2 months ago may not be exactly how they feel still today, having done distance learning for a while. So we don't have parent feedback for the board to consider. And the programs laid out 1 through 5 simply are incremental increases in the number of kids returning to in-person based on the lower grades, preschool, kindergarten, adding 2 grades, adding 3 more grades, adding 3 more grades. There's nothing scientific or magical about them. They just progress from lower grades to upper grades as an example to start the discussion of the board. Distance learning is our Model C. Everybody's on that except about 36 students who are in preschool and in self-contained programs. A hybrid model would be 2 days a week. A modified hybrid would be if some parents stay full-time on distance and some parents wanted to come 5 days, the parents actually keeping their kids home would create the hybrid distance. If you had half the kids staying home on distance learning and half the kids coming to school, you've reduced the number of kids in school by half, and you can have essentially a modified hybrid. And then Model A would be having everybody in person. We don't think that we can run Model B and Model A at the same time in the same school just because of transportation and logistics. Of course, we think there will be people who will want to stay on Model C for a long time because of health conditions. We have some students with autoimmune issues and things like that. So I think Model C will be with us to some degree for quite a while to come. The question is if you want to bring back some of the kids for some of the days. Now, you know everything I know. What do you want to do?
A lot of options, a lot of choices. Any thoughts on any of the information that Dr. Freeman's presented here?
Dr. Freeman, this is Kathy. I just have some general questions. And so other schools have opened or have started to open. Have we, or why wasn't, or was it one of the options, let's just open up? And maybe it's not until October or November, but let's just open up all grades. And let's take the time to plan that, see what it looks like, and figure out, you know, transportation, and see what it would look like, and go from there. I mean, that's what actually quite a few districts did, is just said, okay, we're opening. And they didn't, you know, they too many choices, I think is dangerous, because then you're going to get it so spread. You're not going to have enough for distance. You're not going to have enough teachers for hybrid. You won't have enough teachers for modified. And, you know, so you get to a level where you can only spread so thin. I think too, hearing what I hear, teachers don't want to come back. Not all teachers, but a lot of teachers don't want to come back. So, I mean, before I can pick a model, I need to know how many teachers, and what if they don't want to come back? Can we force them to come back? Can we say, you know, this is, you know, everybody, you know, distance learning is done, and we're going to open up? I mean, what's your thought on that?
Those are great questions, Ms. Riss. Thanks for asking that. So one of the things was the map I showed you is that most of the other districts' metrics are better than the Tolleson region. So the percent of COVID in the community is much lower, which makes it safer to return. But even in those areas, they had dozens of teachers who called in sick in response to being told to come back to work. And like at Cactus Shadows High School today, they had to cancel school because so many teachers called in, much like happened in Red for Ed. So, you know, you can wish it or want it to be true, but you need to have your staff ready to return. And I think some of that has to do with the metrics. So if those numbers get lower and they're, let's say we had all green metrics and teachers still didn't want to come to school, you might expect there'd be a handful of exceptions that had legitimate health needs.
Right.
In some cases, people are caring for somebody in their home that would be dangerous for them to come back and forth in the community, to be isolated and isolated as a caregiver. So there would be some of those, but not like half of your staff.
Right.
Right now, our estimate, you know, would be about half the staff, and that our metrics still aren't as good as other school districts. So the question is, if you looked at program option 5, bring all the kids back K-8 and do it on 9/21. I mean, that would be K-8, 9/21, Model A in person. That would be a combination, right? you might have half your teachers not show up. They're not ready for that. And you could let some parents stay on distance learning, but whether your staff shows up or not is really critical in your ability to deliver program. If you have 33 people, I'm just going to make a small class size example. If our staff to student ratio is about 10-to-1. So there's one teacher for every 20 kids and one support staff person for every 20 kids. So if I had 3 grown-ups and 30 kids, if 3 kids get sick, the 3 grown-ups can still watch 27 kids. If 3 grown-ups get sick, there's nobody to watch all 30 kids. So it really matters who shows up. One of the reasons to start in lower grades is I think that's where the most frustration of kids and families and parents is because the kind of skill set to work independently and all of these devices and platforms is really challenging to the younger kids. The upper grade kids, not so much. And I think Tolleson High School system is going to stay online till after fall break. And they're probably not struggling as much with the platform as, our 5- and 6-year-olds are. So they have different districts at different levels have different needs and they have different metrics. But certainly that would be an option for the board, which would be to bring everybody back K-8 and have them start in 2 weeks and see what happens. I think that would be a little imprudent, but it's a possibility. You could say have everybody come back after fall break on the 19th, because if our metrics continue going the direction they're going now, if you just extend those graphs based on the trend with no consideration for change in the community's behavior, it seems very likely that we would have very low metrics by the time fall break is over. Our concern would be if people go out and go crazy on fall break about Thanksgiving, people are going to be sick again, and we may have to pull back. But
that might be true even if you did a hybrid. I mean, that could be true at any one of the models, right?
Well, exactly, because it's there is some spread at schools. Any place you go from non-congregating to congregating, you're increasing the risk of spread. So there was just an example on the news this morning about a nursing home. One non-symptomatic staff member came in, and within 2 weeks, they had 6 other staff members and 5 residents sick with COVID just from one asymptomatic person. And so then it depends on the amount of contact. But I mean, people have said they've done everything they're supposed to, and it can still spread. I think there's the length of exposure is just as important as the closeness of exposure, from what I understand. So yes, I think the spread that we're talking about in the community, Ms. Reyes, is more particular to the community and not to the school. We're really not measuring schools right now. We're only measuring the community because kids haven't been in school. So
can we force the teachers back? Is there something in the contract? I'm not suggesting we do. I'm asking, does the contracts dictate that teachers must return if we open school?
Well, there is some leeway in the governor's order for COVID-related, 6 COVID-related excuses to winter break. And unless the governor extends it, that would no longer be true. We have 3 conditions that we would release people from their contracts for, but we don't have any teachers to replace them. Otherwise, yeah, they report to their work assignment, when they're told, where they're told, and then reasons where there would be exceptions would be, illness. People who have accumulated leave could take leave. If you remember, Prop 206 went a long way to protecting people's sick leave and protections from employers in monitoring that very much. So that's made things challenging for school districts because of the protection of sick leave. So there are issues with that. We want to work collaboratively with our teachers and our staff to have both mitigation safeguards and an appropriate level of program at the appropriate time. The thing is, you know, we're looking 2 weeks out to implement something without knowing the future. One of the things that I think everybody has to come to terms with is that the likelihood of spread of a virus like COVID is going to be, you know, in our work environment and in our community environment from here on in our future. So this, much like managing the flu or any kind of highly communicable disease that's as easily spread as this is a new normal for us managing program. And the challenge, I think, especially here in Arizona, is that there's not a second line of teachers waiting to step in for teachers here when they get sick or they can't perform. And we can shift back to distance learning if teachers are sick, as long as they're not, you know, too sick to be online. If they're hospitalized, obviously they're not going to be able to work from home. So we want to protect them against a severe disease as much as we can. And I think, you know, those are all good questions. I wish I had better answers for you, but I think one of them that you asked was, there's nothing implied about increasing the program between preschool and K-8 and the 5 dates and the 4 models. Those could be mixed and matched to the degree that that I said was possible. We can put C and B together, or we can put C and A together, but I don't think we can handle the logistics of B and A at the same time. There's just too many moving parts on the support side, not the instruction side, but the support side. Other questions, Kathy?
Are not teachers declared essential personnel?
Yes.
Okay.
There's still exceptions.
No, there's exceptions to everything, but in general, they're essential. Correct. That's all. I thought so, but I wanted to clarify. No, I understand there's exceptions to all of this mess, but yeah.
I guess, Dr. Freeman, one of the questions I've got is the mere fact is like looking at the opposite side of it. The bad side is 2 weeks from now, or would you say 2 weeks from now, or 4 weeks from now, when we get what happened for Labor Day or whatever. It's still not our school district. It's the metrics that go to the community, right? If we have one school, we're not looking at individual schools, we're looking at communities. So it's the community that actually lets the red, yellow, and green light come through, right?
Yeah, we have in the county website right now, we have the ability to look at zip code, municipality, and school district. So we have 2 main zip codes that kind of go down the middle of our school district. Avondale, of course, the city has many, and we have a section of Phoenix on our east side. The Tolleson Union metrics don't match ours. They were more severe, and now they're less severe. So they've gone from being higher than we were early on to lower than we are. But the chart that I gave the board in the update with comparable districts of the 3 metrics for 3 weeks in a row, the Tolleson system was markedly higher than everyone else. And so in the East Valley in particular, their metrics are way, way lower. And so it really does make more sense for them to have more kids in school now than our little pocket. You saw some red on the far left of that map I showed you. That's the Saddle Mountain Unified Region, and their metrics are higher than ours. So they have obviously have some pockets of illness west of here. I don't know if it's Tonopah exactly or some other rural areas, but those are measuring, you know, it's not the kids who went to the hospital, it's everybody who went to the hospital. It's not the kids who tested positive, it's everybody who tested positive. So the difference, of course, is if you're not sending kids to congregate in places, they haven't really had an opportunity to spread. As soon as you start to congregate them, you increase the likelihood of interaction of virus, and other people.
I know I've got some grandkids that went back to school up in Nevada, in Reno. They got called back out again because of the smoke coming over from California. So they had smoke days, but they were really excited to get back. And then they decided, well, we don't know if we're going to have a smoke day or not. They found out that when they went back and tried to do some distant learning, their attention span had been lost after they'd been in school.
Oh, they lost their conditioning. It's like,
yeah,
like running or push-ups. If you don't, got to keep working out.
Dr. Freeman, I mean, how can we pick a model when we don't even know how many teachers will show up? I mean, that's kind of like, I mean, I would just like, I don't know if you do a survey or you what you do, but don't we need to know how many teachers are actually, minus the exceptions, how many are going to come back? If we call it 10/19 and say, okay, school's open, I mean, we can do that, but what if there's no teachers?
We did, Miss Reyes, Mr. Newsom members, we did a survey of K2 teachers because it was, the feedback we got was they were the ones being challenged the most with distance learning. And what we'd really like to do is put people in the best chance of being the most successful with whatever program is being delivered. And like I said, that came out to be about half the teachers who wanted to stay on distance or wanted to be in person. And there seems to be some correlation between health risk and age of teacher. It's not a hard line, but there is some correlation there. We think that actually is going to be right now generalizable to the whole homeroom teacher population. But we can survey more. We asked them just a simple one question: are you ready for in person or are you not? Somebody just opened up a microphone. Go ahead, Kathy.
I was just thinking, I mean, at some point you have to call it, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's no different than any other business that you run. At some point, you think it, and I don't know, I don't have the answers either. Nobody has. But at some point you have to say, welcome back. And it's not a choice. If we need you in school, we value you, and you have to come back. Because I mean, not everybody, but a lot of people like to be in their pajamas and log on and do whatever you need to do. But at some point you got to call them back. And I'll just say my position is we go and we open. What day you think is right and you're planning, that's your call, because you know what you have to do. I'm all for opening, bringing kids back. Of course, I don't think the 21st is practical because you have to do a lot. Maybe it's October 19th. By then you'll have more stats. You'll know how you feel. You can always, you're still distance learning for another month. Maybe you can see it and watch it. But I think at some point you call it and say, welcome back, teachers. We look forward to having you back in the classroom.
Hey, Kathy, maybe we could do something like that. I mean, we could make a suggestion to the staff here that if we did a K2 on 10/19 with a hybrid or something like that, and if something comes up between now and then, we've still got another board meeting, we could make a decision, but at least we could focus on one of these and we could get teacher input and we can get staff input or whatever it might be. And that way you got the K2 through that. You've got it after the fall break, coming back as a hybrid. I mean, that would be at least one shot to look at this particular time and see what we come up with. And if we've got enough teachers, and then again, the next school board meeting, we can say, okay, we've got enough, we can do this, maybe we move into the K-5 or something like that.
I think that's doable too. Then you do phase 2 or 3 or whatever we're calling it. It solves the community, because I don't know about you guys, but I'm starting to get calls from people saying, hey, I'm going to take my kids. I mean, I can tell you right now, 10 kids that's pulled out of different districts and went to this charter school right here on Buckeye Road, the AFM or ASM, whatever it's called. People are looking for ways to get their kids in school. And I think we have to be safe, smart, but we have to do it. I like that suggestion. It sets a deadline. We still have time to look. We give teachers almost more than a whole month to look at it. Notification to parents. We can do phases K through 2nd or whatever you think is right. And then do phase 2, maybe 3rd through 5th. I don't know, something like that. I think that's workable too.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So this is Amy. I I support waiting until after fall break to open for any of our classes. I think that for the reasons that have already been said, that just kind of, it works better for everyone in communication. And I think the idea that when a quarter ends and we come back to a new quarter for grading and things like that, that works. I am concerned just picking grade levels to come back. As a mom, I have a kindergartner and I have a second grader, and it's difficult. How can you ask a kindergartner to do online learning when they can't read yet? So I get that, but I also don't want to come to teachers, and I don't like the idea of coming to teachers and saying, because you teach K through second, you have to come back while these other teachers don't have to come back yet. That is a concern of mine. And so I feel like partially that's a little bit unfair if you have a teacher who's that uncomfortable and she just happens to be a kindergarten teacher.
You know, that's a good point. I could see as a teacher, I might feel slighted. I think you bring a very good point, Amy. I think it's something to think about. That's a good point. Why do they get to just because they teach, first grade? So maybe we bring them all back October 19th and it's, wide open and everybody comes back, and then no teacher feels, whatever grade you teach, it's fair. And it gives you a month and, a half to plan, and we can get quarterly data. I didn't think about the grading, but that's probably very true in terms of just making it easy and clean and cut. I like that idea too.
Ms. Reyes, Ms. Sosnick, President Nielsen. So as President Nielsen pointed out, there is a board meeting on 10/6 prior to the break where we would have an opportunity to do a more stratified survey of teachers in those three bands, K2, 3, 5, 6, 8. And we could get more feedback from parents. Obviously, one of the things that we realize is there are families who are not going to be ready to come back on the 19th. They're going to want to stay distance learning. We'll need staff to help address and meet the needs of those kids. So we'll need some staff who are going to want to, or going to need to stay on distance learning. And we think there will be some overlap there, that teachers who want to stay distance and families who want to stay distance. The likelihood that there's a perfect correspondence between teacher wants and family wants is very low. But where they do overlap, we want to take advantage of that. And that is the situation, Ms. Reyes, where we're not forcing somebody to go one way or the other, and then having to deal with that conflict, the kind of showdown to show up. So we could bring more data before the board then. We could work on the assumption that we're collecting data for everybody to return on the 19th. And then based on that data, the board might pull back on those expectations on the 6th a little bit and say there's certain programs or certain components that aren't ready to come back. Instead of this kind of creeping along once a month with setting a new deadline, is shoot for K8 on 10/19 unless there is COVID metric data or parent survey data or teacher survey data indicating that's unwise, and go over that on the 6th.
I like that. I think that moving ahead with, we're going to open on 10/19, understanding you're going to get data. If parents say go and COVID data says go, we're going to have a different conversation because teachers don't want to. I hope that's not the case. I hope we have some that want to stay distance and it makes sense for parents, but I would hope a lot of them would like to get back in the classroom and back in with their children. Again, understanding as long as it's safe.
Well, I think one of the things people are going to have to come to terms with is that if COVID's in our environment forever,
right,
and you don't want to work in that environment, then you may need to either be a distance learning teacher solely, or look for other
Seek other
forms of,
opportunities, as we say.
yeah. So again, I think it depends a lot on the metrics. If there's a lot of COVID, people are going to want to stay home.
Of
And
course.
if COVID levels are low and manageable, can we still manage the small number of people who want to stay home? I would imagine that we can. But if we have, more staff who want to stay home, or more families who want to stay home, we have to reconcile that difference somehow to try to meet their needs. And I don't think we truly know what that is yet. But if there's people who are, a lot of people who are in the teaching ranks who are going to say, I'm never coming back, I'm distance only, then there's a bit of a reckoning for the profession, in the months and years to come, because I think there truly is, with people leaving the profession because of COVID, and because the baby boomers are aging out, and all of the other pressure that are put on teachers for the compensation and working conditions that they're under, there's going to be a huge problem. It won't be solved by vouchers and micro schools and pods, but we may have to suffer through that transition and that reform to get to a new solution. I wish we didn't have to, but the amount of collaboration, or people stepping up to help protect and meet the needs of teachers in not just Arizona, but in America, is a little tragic, I think, in itself. So I'd be interested to hear from the other members who haven't chimed in yet, if they have other ideas, or if they think the discussion is on the right track.
Yeah, this is Mr. Rader. I certainly as far as areas where I believe we have consensus, I agree that if it's safe enough to bring our K2 students back for parity, both with our parents and our teachers, we should bring all grades back, so a K8. So I certainly agree with the discussion regarding not phasing in the grade levels. For me, I personally, and I know everybody's in the same place and there's no crystal balls, but if the data would dictate that we're in that moderate range to come back, I'm all for coming back as soon as possible with some sort of hybrid learning in class. So that would be the 9/21. I certainly hear what the other board members are saying, and I'm also not opposed to erring on the side of caution. So if we do feel like, as a group, being a unified body, that the coming back after fall break is what we feel is best for our teacher, staff, and students, and I will concur with that. I do have some concerns just about the teachers survey that we were just discussing. Again, I so respect the work of our teachers and the difficult position they're in, and at the same time, I hate for us to be in a showdown versus survey as well. I'd really like the data to drive our decision making, and I hope our teachers can respect that. And if the data indicates that it's safe for our teachers and our students to return based on from our public health experts, that's when we'll determine it's safe to come back. I hate for us to meet on 10/6 and you have a survey that says 50% of teachers don't wish to come back, but the data says that it's safe to come back. We're essentially going to then, at least in my mind, we're going to go with the data. So I hate to marginalize that teacher survey data. So that's just kind of my perspective, that truly let the data drive the decision making, and hopefully our teachers, we want them to feel safe, but understand that that's the basis for the decision making process.
I could definitely support that, Mr. Rader. I also agree, and I think I agree with that. I think we need to be careful when you do a survey and it comes back 60% says no, what do you do then? So I definitely concur with you, and I like that statement.
Just one more thing, Dr. Ramos, before you start. As far as the dates as well, I do feel like this decision is important enough that I'm willing to come back. And I know that there's some staff work involved in this as well. But if we need to create special meetings that don't necessarily align with our existing meeting schedule to consider this based on changes in data, I understand the difficulty in staff to put these things together and to make these modifications, but I think given the magnitude of this decision, we could certainly consider special board meetings at any time if we felt that it was warranted.
Yeah, Mr. Rader, we looked at that, and that 9/21 date is 3 weeks of instruction before going on break. We didn't think we'd want to do any less than that, like bring the kids back a week for report cards and conferences and send them away a week and then try to bring them back again a week after that. That just getting everybody to the right bus stop on time would be a problem. So
no, I get that, but as far as some of the other dates that are on there, if we needed to modify that some way. So thank you very much.
You understand. Perlette?
Yes, so there are a couple things. I'll just be brief. We clearly must use our best judgment, right? Which sounds like everyone's committed to doing that. Data is a part of that, but so is looking at what's in the best interest of the cross-representation of stakeholders that we have. I concur with the two things, not phasing in the grade levels and returning to have a discussion during a special meeting time that might be more appropriate, that would give us more time to analyze the data in the current state at the time, giving us more time to process. My position hasn't really changed from what it's been in the last several months. And I would say my priority is in being cautious. Let me say cautiously, I'm cautiously optimistic about the future in terms of opening. As I've read a number of articles related to schools and colleges who've opened up, I'm going to say prematurely, and which has caused COVID to spike. I certainly don't want that to impact Littleton, both obviously for teachers, but also students who may be impacted, and then that would obviously disproportionately impact families, because then if there's a contract, they get contract COVID at school, then obviously they take it back home, which could compromise family members there. And so I think that the items that we've talked about, that sounds like there's some consensus around the not phasing in and returning, I'm also in agreement with.
So if we gave staff and administration an idea, at least with the K-8 and the 1019, gather the data and let the data drive the model. That way we've got all the kids involved with it, the teachers, and it gives us then, like I say, until the 19th, that would actually provide data through actually what, Dr. Freeman, the 1st of October, right? 2 weeks behind.
Yeah, I think you're going to find the teacher behavior to be pretty rational. So you're not going to see like the metrics are all low, but 60% don't want to come back. We are going to have exceptions that we need to deal with. And I'm almost certain it's not going to line up exactly in a way that is smooth and convenient for us. But I don't think it's going to be hugely dramatic either. I think a lot of the staff will feel better about coming to work when the metrics look better. The question is going to be the behavior of everyone in Arizona and Maricopa County. Is if people continue to show restraint and wear masks and exercise good mitigation practice, that we don't see another spike. If you see another spike like we did after Memorial Day, where suddenly emergency rooms and ICUs are full of COVID cases, then that's going to trigger that fear and emotional response that's the kind of thing that I think is more likely to drive, whether teachers are willing to come back to work, whether we continue with good mitigation and low metrics, or if people get careless again and there's a big spike. I think you'll see the teacher behavior really responding to what's happening in the environment that way. And they've been pretty rational. Most of them want to be with their kids. It's not just like a soundbite. Those of us who work in this field miss the relationships that you have with people. And I love you all, but Zoom doesn't cut it for a lot of us. And so
I can say, as a teacher, it is more work for me to teach online than it is to have them in my classroom. And every teacher I've spoken to would say the same thing.
Unless there's an objection, we're going to move forward with planning for a K-8 return on the 19th, collecting survey data and metrics, probably a couple opportunities for the board to review that trend before actually having to finalize that vote on the 6th. And I'll keep you informed of data and changes as we go through the weeks ahead. You'll have some idea if things are looking better or looking worse, and let's hope they look better.
Can you all live with that?
Sounds good.
Does anybody want to make a motion?
Do you want to make a motion along that line? I just said this for possible action. We can just direct you to do that.
Yeah, I don't think you're really ready for a motion, but it doesn't mean somebody doesn't want to.
So are you
All
looking for a motion, or what are we looking for?
No, we're not looking for a motion. We want to give him some direction, the staff some direction, and I think we've done that fairly well tonight.
And we'll get some statistics and more information for the board.
Okay, that completes that one. Item number 14. Dr. Freeman, are you going to take care of that one?
All right. Number apologies, I thought I was muted, and I was. I had a Zoom moment there. With everything that's been happening in the greater community, and all the attention that inequity in resources and families and public schools, in the justice system, some of the remarks I've made in my comments, Dr. Ramos felt moved to try to put together, a resolution to help move the district and the board forward as partners with the community in at least doing our part to address and improve the situation. If nothing else than in our little corner of the world. She drafted some ideas together in the form of a resolution, went over them with the board president. He and I reviewed them and took painstaking effort to try to keep her ideas in the resolution, but in the appropriate place. So things that are whereases and therefores are appropriately located, and that the resolution provides support, but doesn't provide direction that otherwise should be posted and discussed by the quorum as separate items. And so I think President Nielsen has shared that work back with her. We committed to having it on the agenda for the board's consideration. I think that I think it's important work, and We have also met with the board's attorney and had her review that. Her only caution was to be sure that we did give direction in the resolution that that should come through separate items, and that that we needed to clean up the format. So the copy of this has been provided to the board's counsel already, and she's said that there's no objection to it from council. The board's not required to do resolutions. These are completely at the discretion and the interest of the governing board. So I don't know that I need to read it to you. It's pretty clear in its meaning and the statement it makes, but Dr. Ramos might want to speak a little bit to the important components of it and why she put it together. If there's questions specifically about the language, I can try to address those, but I think it, as a piece of work at its face value, it's pretty self-explanatory. Mr. President, I'll leave it to you to guide the discussion or move to action.
Any of you have any comments, thoughts? Would you like to start off with anything?
I do have some comments. So Dr. Freeman and the principals and his leadership team, I think, have engaged in some cultural competency and education. And in fact, I applaud their efforts, including some that we heard from tonight, where there's a desire to engage in more collaborative partnerships to create greater opportunities for inclusion. We heard about recognizing that, there are cultural differences. And so I think that there, and including Dr. Freeman's just verbal support, I think that there's an understanding that there are already activities taking place that are geared towards expanding what we currently do, and effective approaches to teaching and the classroom climate are all geared towards recognizing that we have a diverse student body, and in order for us to be more inclusive, we need to expand our ability to, partner and engage, recognizing that our student body is not always represented by the teachers that are in front of them. And so the intention of this resolution, is really to acknowledge, for the board to acknowledge that there is a desire to ensure that we are inclusive and that we engage in activities that would acknowledge the need for greater awareness and that bias does exist in terms of implicit bias, and that in order for us to address that, we need to be proactive and not necessarily, I'm going to say, reactive. And so the desire is really to expand the amount of support that we currently do, and it not necessarily be based on a school principal that may do that, but from a district-wide perspective, that we engage in activities that would support this non-discrimination awareness and curriculum content and resource alignment, as well as really just having meaningful conversations to the point that was made earlier, that where we look at where we can be more welcoming and encouraging of those who are from communities that are not like our own.
I ask that we pull the resolution up. I know I read it, but I don't see it on the screen.
Sue, did you hear that?
Thank you. Sorry, Dr. Ramos. I didn't know if you were done. I just wanted to be able to read it again.
And, I'm welcome to read it if someone wants me to, but my intention was to give a brief kind of summary and what the purpose and intent was beyond what Dr. Freeman noted. And I probably should say this, because some believe we're on the verge of a, we have very interesting dynamics happening in the country, and this was not really motivated by that as much as it was motivated by an awareness that these issues exist within our communities. And when I say these issues, I mean bias, certainly discrimination exists. We don't know to the degree, because we're not necessarily, at least I'm not necessarily monitoring it as a part of the board. But without having specific data that speaks to that, I think it's important to acknowledge that bias and awareness does exist as a systemic issue of racism and racist behavior. And as a result of that, we as a board support this idea of diversity and inclusion and non-discrimination, and providing cultural competency for for ourselves collectively.
For that, I can just add, I look at the one here, I'll just pick one out because of City Council itself. Lifelong learners help students understand one of the strategic goals for the city of Avondale is for this idea of lifelong learners, that you continue to learn even after you're out of school. So the city of Avondale is looking at addressing that one as a community, as well as some of these other things in here about families. That was one of the ones that I picked out that, the city is also looking at. They've got 5 different areas that they're looking at. That's just a renewal one from 5 years ago. Every 5 years they look at it. And those are the ones that they were spending quite a bit of time on: lifelong learning, whether it's the school or whether to provide libraries or different ways to do that for not only students but parents and other such things. And then what is the city of Avondale going to look like in 5 years from now and 10 years from now? We don't want to get out of the school board thing, but the city is also looking at these aspects of these things as well.
This is Kathy. I've read it several times and reread it, and I certainly want to thank Dr. Ramos. I have never really thought about putting it in a resolution. I have always spoken up highly of the things we have done, and to continue to expand on, recognize, acknowledge, and to continue to do better at bringing all of our community, regardless of race, social economics, and all of those factors. I've always been a huge component or a proponent of that. To put it in a resolution, I totally support and think that we always have strived to do this well, and sometimes we fell short. And perhaps by having it in the resolution, it is always something that you can go back and reference and make sure that you are living up to the core values, not just trust, respect. There's many core values, I think, built in this. So thank you for bringing it forward. I think it is a great thing to constantly reread and remind ourselves why we've certainly done a great job of it. We certainly need to continue to do better and work towards always expanding knowledge in this ever-changing time. So thank you for doing it. I definitely support it and appreciate it being brought forward.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, this is John. I won't repeat everything that Kathy just said, but I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much, Dr. Ramos, for your work on this.
If there's no other comments or questions on it, if you'd like to roll up, can I have a motion then that we accept this? And then we as a board will be looking at maybe some other ways we can implement this as well.
The governing board approved the attached resolution to create more equitable and inclusive schools for all children.
This is Kathy. I'll second that.
Thank you.
Mr. Nielsen?
Aye.
Mr. Rader?
Aye.
Dr. Ramos?
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes?
Aye.
Mrs. Sashnik?
Aye.
Thank you.
Passes. Thank you so much for all your work and effort on that.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, we got a couple more items we need to go through here. yet. Ms. Kelly, are you still here?
Yes, President Nielsen, my mouse got stuck, so, but yes, I am still here. I have the first set of policies and regulations this evening, so I'll start through that little list if I may.
And again, these are for discussion tonight, nothing to be approved or no action to be taken tonight, right?
That is correct, no action to be taken.
Thank you.
So I'll start with Regulation GBGBR, which is Staff, Personal Security, and Safety. The recommended changes from ASBA to this regulation is the result of Executive Order 2020-51. The additional language requires the use of face coverings until the Arizona Department of Health Services determines that they are no longer necessary. And if there are any questions about that one, you're going to see this in a couple different places with my colleagues presenting a little bit later. Okay, moving forward, the second policy I have this evening is ACA sexual harassment. This is the first reading of recommended changes to this policy, and changes are being recommended by ASBA to meet new federal guidelines. Changes are made in the existing policy and regulation on sexual harassment, which will follow this, to clarify that sexual harassment in the workplace is being addressed for the purpose of an employee complaint to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And the regulation, ACAR, sexual harassment, again, changes are being made based on ASBA recommendations, and they're clarifying that sexual harassment in the workplace is being addressed for the purpose of an employment complaint to the EEOC. The final two this evening are actually recommended changes, both coming from ASBA based on Office of Civil Rights and U.S. Department of Education guidelines. So policy ACAA Title IX sexual harassment. This is the first reading of the recommended changes to this policy. And prior to May 6, 2020, Title IX did not refer to sexual harassment. However, the final rule regulations now define sexual harassment and establish detailed procedures for how school districts subject to Title IX must respond to allegations of sexual harassment. The accompanying regulation, which is the next number, is a very detailed procedure based on guidance from both the Office of Civil Rights and the U.S. Department of Education, and written by ASBA, and it is quite lengthy, but it is a very detailed process on how we will have opportunities for people to file complaints, and then there are different people within the organization that complaint process would go through. It does not rest on any one person's shoulders. And if there are no questions, I will pass this off to my next person, Ms. Vandewater.
Any questions or comments before she passes that off? You thought, Ms. Vandewater, go ahead.
Thank you.
President Nielsen, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman, this agenda item is a discussion and first reading of recommended student policy change to policy IHA, Basic Instructional Program. The recommended changes in policy IHA are aligned to House Bill 2625, which added ARS 319, amended ARS 203, and added ARS 710.01 relating to civics. ARS 319 specifies that September 25th in each year shall be observed as Sandra Day O'Connor Civics Celebration Day, which is not a legal holiday. If Sandra Day O'Connor's Civics Celebration Day falls on a Saturday, Sunday, or other day when a public school is not in session, the preceding or following school day shall be observed in the public school as the holiday. ARS 203 stated that the State Board of Education shall, for the purposes of Sandra Day O'Connor Civic Celebration Day, instruction under section ARS 710.01, develop a list of recommended resources relating to civics education that align with the academic standards prescribed by the State Board of Education in history, social sciences. The State Board shall establish a process that allows public schools to recommend resources for addition to that list. ARS 15.710.01 adds that on Sandra Day O'Connor Civic Celebration Day, each public school in this state shall dedicate the majority of the school days to civics education. I can answer any questions that you might have. The second item that I have, President Nielsen, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman. This agenda item is a discussion and first reading of recommended student policy changes to new regulation, JICA RB student dress. This is a recommendation of new regulation, student dress. The regulation was created in response to the Arizona Executive Order, Arizona Opening for Learning, 2020-51, and includes language addressed that face coverings are to be worn by staff, students, and visitors. The proposed revisions are consistent with the Arizona Department of Health Services and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The new language is identical to the two other regulations to address that face covering shall be worn while on district property or attending any district event.
I've got just one quick question for you, Ms. Vanderwall.
Yes.
Is there anything in there about, and I don't know how to put it, I'll tell you how my kids put it, offensive or distracting masks?
I don't believe, President Nielsen, I don't believe that that wording is in this regulation, but we could put something in our student handbook to address that topic.
There's a separate policy on student dress that addresses that, not on a mask, but anywhere a student's body. Yeah.
I think it says no vulgar or rude or defamatory statements.
That's fine. I just know my grandkids have already started talking about some of the other masks that the kids are wearing to school. So
Yes, and we'll make sure we communicate that to our community.
thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, just a quick follow-up question. So students or visitors not wearing masks, will they be removed from the classroom and or denied access to the school under this regulation?
I would assume unless you determine they, I mean, if they have a medical condition that they can't, I don't know how you will do that.
Well, there's a limited number of exceptions in there, Mr. Rader, President Nielsen. I think that for the protection of everyone, unless you meet one of those exceptions, you should have those on. And I think besides dress, you might fall under defiance. Obviously, we don't need to let visitors onto campus if they're not wearing one. I mean, they shouldn't be able to get past a single point of entry. I have seen people who get past the single point of entry and then take their mask off once they're through. They would have to be asked to leave. I think that there are kids who are going to have anxiety issues and other things like that that may have to have individual needs addressed. So unless it is just out and out rebellion, we plan to have extra masks for instance for bus drivers. If a child forgot theirs, we're not just going to leave them on the street corner because they don't have a mask. So some contingency for that. But I think if a child's just being defiant and disruptive, whether it's a mask or any other article of contention, that issue is a issue in and of itself. clearly we're going to have to work through some of these things. I think this is going to be new territory, but I don't think we're going to get into the political debate of, you know, I get to mask and I don't get to mask and I have the right not to mask. I don't think we're going to cross that threshold. It's a county order and it's a governor's order and it's a governing board policy. So it's not up for debate whether it's appropriate. It's going to be up for debate about the individual needs of the child.
No, thank you for that explanation. I don't disagree with it. I was actually wondering if it needed to be more explicitly stated, kind of what you just said. My only thought of it being under dress code is typically dress code or student dress is not something that you would remove a student for or deny them access to. So just the kind of the placement of the regulation or the face mask, whether it was appropriate under student dress or if, to your point, it needed to be more explicitly spelled out so that parents and or students knew that they would not be permitted access without the mask. So that was my only comment there. I don't know if there's consensus about that or not.
Well, Mr. Rader, President Nielsen, one of the things we were wondering is as the metrics subside and there's no longer a health safety crisis in the community, do we have to come back and change our policies again? A mask on, mask off meeting. So I think this probably isn't the last word on masks and other kinds of PPE and other kinds of mitigation that's going to come before the board. I think we're in for a dynamic ride here.
Probably so.
Thank you. And with no other comments on that one, Sue, would you like to take those last couple of them there?
Thank you, Mr. President. Governing Board, the recommended changes to policy KB, parental involvement in education, come to you tonight as a result of a section added in statute which states that the Department of Education shall establish and post on its website a statutory handbook of parental rights, and then the districts are required to connect to it. So if you note there on page 19, that's the only change you'll see, that the district will connect to the Department of Education's parental rights handbook. And the next one that I have will sound super familiar. This is regarding face masks as well, and it is addressed to visitors. It's a new regulation, which is why it's all red, KIRB, visitors to school, and was added to address face coverings. Similar to the regulations presented by my colleagues, this one was added the requirement for visitors to wear face masks while being on district property or attending district events. So it went in multiple places.
Thank you. Any more?
Discussion?
No, not a discussion. Any more of these things to look over tonight?
I think we're done.
There were a couple of high school ones we didn't bring.
All right, I appreciate your attention tonight, especially the feedback on the challenges we have with getting our kids back to school. It's important. I'm grateful for your input on that. We do have another meeting coming up sooner here, September 22nd. We'll get some information out to you that. And then as Dr. Freeman said, the next board meeting would be on October the 6th. So with those, if there's no other comments, questions, stories, or anything else tonight, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Kathy, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Kathy. Have a second.
Perletta seconds.
Perletta second.
Nielsen,
Aye.
Mr. Rader,
Aye.
Dr. Ramos,
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes,
Aye.
Mrs. Sashina.
Aye.
Thank you all very, very much. Have a nice, great rest of the week.
Thank you, everybody. Good discussion.
Thank you all.